Have you heard? Marana has unforgettable festivals and events. From parades to fireworks, rodeo competitions to light shows, we'll show you a good time. Learn more about the Marana Signature Event Series by visiting maranaaz.gov/events.
The Town of Marana is dedicated to providing 5-star service for all residents, both 2- and 4-legged. Download the Marana Pets app to report a lost pet or upload a photo of a found pet. Start reuniting families today.
Welcome to Real Talk with the Town, where I sit down with the Marana staff to answer your burning questions about our beautiful community. My name is Terry Rozema, and I'm the town manager for the town, so let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Real Talk with the Town. My name is Terry, and I am your host. And today in the studio, we have a couple of special guests from our water department. We have Asia, and we have Jing. And Jing is our water director, water and wastewater director for that department. And Asia, what is your exact title, Asia?
I am the Water Resources Administrator.
There we go. Yeah, we all have to have cool sounding titles so that when people ask us what we do for a living, it sounds really important and cool. So that's a cool sounding title. Before we jump into this topic, because we're going to be talking about designated assured water supply, a pretty important topic for people who live in the desert. And but before we jump into that, we're going to do a little icebreaker. Since we're into the new year, and Happy New Year to all of our listeners, as well as to the folks here in the studio. Asia and Jing, New Year's resolutions. Is this something you do, you don't do? You got any New Year's resolutions you feel like sharing with our listeners? Jing, we'll start with you. Yeah, are you into New Year's resolutions, Jing?
Yes, I'm actually a little bit behind on that, but I'm committed to have a set of resolutions for this new year 2024. So the first of all is I definitely need to look into our water bill and making sure that we lead by example, and my household will use less water than last year. So yeah, that's definitely going to be in my New Year resolution.
So do you have teenagers that take long showers? Is that what we're hearing here?
Yeah, the trick is just to get them out.
Get them out of the shower, yeah. Yeah, all my kids are growing out of the house now, so I don't have to worry about long showers anymore. All right, Asia, how about you? Are you a resolution person?
Typically, I am not.
Yeah.
But I am inspired now by what Jing said. We have installed gutters, and we have a barrel.
Oh, you're doing some rain
more
harvesting. Yeah. That's awesome. I love to hear that. That's very cool.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, I've been looking for ways that I can do that too at my house. So, all right. Well, so much for New Year's resolutions, but we are here to talk about designation of assured water supply, and it's probably something, and we call it DAWS, and it's probably not something that most people are familiar with. So, which one of you two would like to give me a textbook, not even a textbook definition, but a definition for our listeners so that they have a greater understanding of what DAWS is?
Okay, looks like Jing is looking to me for this one.
All right.
I'm going to say the DAWS is the designation of assured water supply. And the Assured Water Supply Program is a program of the state's Department of Water Resources. And the purpose is to ensure that people have 100 years of water assured to them from their water provider. So the water provider is the designated entity.
Okay, so whether you are Tucson Water or Metro Water or Marana Water or some other water company, every single one of those companies has a DAWS. Is that accurate?
Sure. The ones that you mentioned have a DAWS or a designation, but that is a particular thing that providers do get. And a designation means that you've identified the current, committed, and projected demands that you will be able to supply into the future. So
we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But before we get to that, so all these water companies have a designation of assured water, and we, the town of Marana, we have our own assured water supply, right?
Right.
That's something we've had in place since the water company was formulated. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, let me chime in on that.
Sure.
Is certainly, all the water supplies providers in the region that we choose to have a designation of a short water supply. And we have had this for over 20 some years. And the first DAOs that we had was in 1990s. And we have been successfully maintain the DAOs until, is required. Another way actually to provide water resources is could be the developer can bring in their own water resources. The town decides to, in our situation, the town decides to provide the DAOs and to facilitate the development, which is true the same situation for many other municipalities in the region.
Okay. So we've had a DAWS. We've had it for a while. Has it gone up and down? Has it only gone up? I mean, how does that work? When do we just come and say, hey, we have a DAWS and here's how much we have in it? Do we have to make an application for that? How does that work?
So the DAOs that we currently have has a 10-year term. It's very typical. And ADWR established the program just to make sure, like Asia mentioned, to make sure that the long-term water sustainability and also protect the consumers' best benefit, best interest. So each DAOs that they have 10 to 20 years term. And since the beginning that we maintain a DAOs, the number of acre feet per year increased over time. There are multiple reasons that people go back to modify the DAOs. One is like close to the end of the term that the water providers go back to modify the DAOs. And sometimes, I think this is either the first or the fifth time we modify the DAOs. It's a very common process. So it's not like a unique situation just for Town of Marana. It's a typical process.
Okay. So a couple of things that you said there that raised questions for me. And since I'm not a knowledgeable water person like Asia or Jing, so you said 10 years. Now, 10 years doesn't seem like a very long time. So what happens at the end of 10 years? All of a sudden we lose our DAWs? I mean, we lose our assured water? We have to reapply? I mean, what happens there?
So we basically 2 years before the 10-year term, the end of your term, that we go back to recertify DAOs. Mm-hmm. So again, it's a typical process.
So why would you do 10 years if there's options for 10 years or 20 years? Why would you do a 10 year as opposed to a 20 year?
Yeah, it's because it's based on the projection of your development, your water demand.
Okay.
So 10 to 20 years in between that people, the state and also the water providers can provide a reasonable projection. If it's overly too long, so that the accuracy of the projection may or may not be there. So
and would that be the case too, especially for a faster growing community versus, so like, let's say there's a community that's completely grown out. They got 30,000 residents. They can't grow beyond what they are. Does it make sense for them to do 20 year versus 10 year? Whereas maybe for somebody like Marana, where we're growing, we have lots of open space, so on and so forth. It makes sense to do a 10 year versus a 20 year. Is that, would that be true or did I just say something that made no sense whatsoever?
Yeah, the 20-year horizon is allowed by the state statute, right? Mm-hmm. So 10 years is typical. And then we tried 20 year at the beginning, which we projected our development is happens sooner. So that's another reason that our DAOs, proposed DAOs, when we changed from 20 years to 10 years, it's like the total DAOs didn't decrease a whole lot because, our projection is definitely much better in the first 10 years.
That makes sense. I mean, projecting out 20 years for growth and needs is much more difficult than 10 years. So that makes a lot of sense to me. So Yeah. So then there was some other comments that you made about the designation of assured water supply, and that it's continually gone up. And is it continually gone up in relation and correlation to population? Is that how that kind of typically goes?
The reason that we normally, well, there are different reasons people go back to modify the DAOs. There was one time that we went back because we add additional renewable water resources, right? So that is reclaimed water. So that's one time that we went back to modify the DAOs. And this current time
and that
is
was what, about 2011, 12, 13, somewhere around in there?
We actually added some of those supplies as recently as 2017.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah, but we have been adding more renewable supplies, throughout. That's one of our big goals. We're talking a lot about the demands, right? That's what you're trying to meet, show that you can meet the demands, but then you need to have the renewable supplies to do that. That's part of the designation.
And another reason to have your own wastewater treatment plant, right? Because that's a renewable resource. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So what is our current DAWs? What is our current allotment of water supply right now as we sit here, I guess, talking today?
Sure. Our current is 7,580 acre feet per year.
Okay.
And so that's what we've applied to modify.
Okay. So 7,000, what was it again? Say it one more time.
7580.
7580 acre feet, and an acre foot for. So this is something I do know. So I'm gonna impress our listeners so they think I'm actually like smart like you guys. So an acre foot is an acre, 45,000 square foot. About 1 foot deep, right? That constitutes 1 acre foot.
Yes.
And we have 7,580 of those, and we're using roughly how much right now? What are we using of that 7,580?
To serve our customers in the Marana water system, we're using about 3,000 acre feet per year.
Okay, so not even half of what we're allowed we have available to us, but then there's an amount that we're committed to. So this goes back to, I forget which one of you said it, the different, we have what we're serving, what we're committed to, and what we're projecting. So what we're serving right now is roughly 3,000 of our 7,580. And we are committed to how much?
And we are committed, we're getting very close to that 7,580.
Okay.
When we add them together, the 3,000 and 4,580. So that's part of the reason why we're looking to do this modification, to increase it so that we would be able to serve more in the future and show that we have the renewable supplies for that.
Okay, great. So 3,000 roughly that we're serving, 7,580 that we have. We're committed to most of that. So what happens? I mean, does that mean like tomorrow all of a sudden there won't be more water for people? Or does it take a while to get to that 7,580?
Sure, physically it would take a while to get to that 7,580.
What's a while, Aisha?
What is a while?
Yeah.
So my crystal
I know
ball,
I know that's a really tough question because
Right.
you're trying to give a guesstimate, a very, very rough calculation. But is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 15 years based on projected growth? Any thoughts on that?
Sure. So, for our projections, we were looking at things from 5% to 8%, all the way down to 3%, looking across how folks are projecting growth into the future. But I also can say that, I started in 2014, so I've been here not quite 10 years, and we've about doubled our demand since then.
Okay.
So we can see those types of demand increases.
Okay, so we went from 1,500 to 3,000 in about 10 years. So, okay.
Yeah, just before I started and
Right.
kind of
Okay,
10
very good.
years. Sure.
Very good. So, it sounds like we have sufficient water, obviously, to serve the people we have here, to serve those people for 100 years. We have a amount committed for people that have already platted development in our community that we'll be serving, but we're reaching the capacity of that. So in order to get more, we had to do what? We had to go and beg, or we had to fill out, application, or what did we have to do to try and get a higher designation of assured water?
Sure, it is established process, like I mentioned earlier. So it's that the ADWR has a licensing time frame. There are 2 steps of review. So the first step review is administrative completeness, like we just recently completed. So
Okay.
we applied the DOS modification May 2022.
Okay,
So it's quite a
I'm
while.
gonna stop you right there because I want to make sure that our listeners are completely clear on this. So ADWR, the Arizona Department of Water Resources, that's who we make the application to.
Correct.
Okay, so we make out an application, say, hey, we need to increase our DAWs because we are projecting additional growth beyond what we have assured water supply for committed and current and committed, and we're projecting we're going to need more, right?
That's
so
correct.
you make an application. And this isn't like a new process that they made just for us, right?
No, absolutely not. They have that in the ACC and also established in the revised statute. So like I, of course, talked about, this is the 4th and 5th time Marana did that. And it's a typical process that everybody else has to go through if they need to make a difference.
Pretty easy process, pretty strenuous process. I mean, where would you rate it?
It's been 2 years.
It's been 2 years. So I'm going to go with strenuous. Okay, there's a lot of work that goes into this, it sounds like.
Yes, we had a number of meetings with the Department of Water Resources and responding to their questions, so that they could really evaluate the application.
So evaluate the application. I like that, Asia, because I think, and I actually heard this from, the comments that came through that, this is a rubber stamp kind of a process, that it is it's a cloak and dagger behind closed doors kind of process. Is that an unfair thing to say about this process, that it's cloak and dagger and cutting deals behind closed doors, and it's a rubber stamp kind of thing, or is it just the opposite of that?
I wouldn't say that, because it's a lot of work, not only from our staff, truly the water resources staff, Asia and her staff really work really hard on this one. And not only the town staff, ADWR people also working really hard. Look at our applications, and there are some iterations collecting data. So they have a set of criteria. Those criteria is not that easy to be met. They make sure that we meet every single one of them. So that's how difficult, and it took some iterations so far. The completeness letter for us is almost like a trophy.
Yeah, so you recently got a letter from ADWR that said your application is complete.
Yeah.
And it took the better part of how long? A year and a half to get to that point?
Well, May, we're not quite 2 years, but
Yeah.
A year
So
and a half.
coming up on a year?
19 months.
19 months. Coming up on 19 months of going back and forth with ADWR, supplying the information, them evaluating the information, making the calculations to determine, is this an appropriate amount that we're asking for?
Right.
I mean, is that, because I've described this to like our council members and to other people as a very rigorous, strenuous process. And I think that's fair. Am I off board on that?
No, you're absolutely correct on that, which we be. Not only that, the working hard is one thing, and I think personally, I believe it's necessary, because it's important for the people in the region, in the state, that knowing that they issued the state level, that they issued the DAWs responsively. So they have to
Bingo.
check. They have to check, making sure that each application meet their criteria, right? Not hurting the groundwater condition, not hurting the future ability to supply water. for the communities. So it is important, it's necessary. So meanwhile, I personally also very happy that we get the completeness. We have to do the groundwater modeling to making sure that our groundwater supply is robust. So it is robust through this process.
Mm-hmm. I like what you said there, Jing, about treating this with, a high level of responsibility, because water in the desert it's like gold, right? I mean, it's a very important commodity for life, for growth, all of those things. So would you say that ADWR takes this process very seriously?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So we've gone through this application process, and ADWR says, all right, your application is complete. So does that mean we have our new designation now, or where do things stand? Asia?
Sure. So the letter that we did receive does specify the public comment period.
The letter that's like a trophy.
That's trophy.
Yeah. Let's not forget that. I mean, it's a big deal for you guys. I know that. So.
It is. I think even as Jing was stating, or as I was thinking, like, why did I say 2 years? Before we even submit the application, right, we had the whole process, a pre-application meeting and months of doing the groundwater model and things like that before submitting the application. So now we're at that stage where it's in a public comment process. It's in the stage where ADWR is drafting a final finding. So they would issue a decision and order as a final result, and then we would have our modification.
Okay.
Enjoy free live music at Marana's Concerts in the Courtyard, located in the beautiful Marana Municipal Complex, scheduled on third Thursday nights in the fall and spring. With theme nights, food trucks, and attractions, this concert series is truly a family-friendly experience. Visit maranaaz.gov/events for the complete schedule.
Property crimes are often the result of opportunity. You can take action to help reduce crime by starting a Neighborhood Watch program. Neighborhood Watch serves as a guide for more eyes and ears in your neighborhood. Contact the Marana Police Department Community Resource Unit at 520-382-2055 for more information.
Why would you want to work for the Town of Marana? Well, let's hear what our employees have to say.
I feel like working for the Town of Marana makes you feel like a person, not a number.
I really wanted to work for the community where I lived.
I have children that play in the parks.
Working for a public entity, it's kind of a sacred trust. I like that. It's an honor to serve.
The town's mission is to provide 5-star service for a thriving community.
To me, 5-star service comes from within. It's a drive to make your surroundings a better place.
Providing community service like the Founders Day Parade, the swim lessons, clean drinking water.
Of course, the benefits are great.
I get sent to seminars and conferences, and
Town of Marana compensates vacation.
We do have an amazing gym facility, alternate schedules as well. Our employees are also able to telework.
My supervisor in particular really cares about our work-life balance.
My colleagues are fun. It's just a fun place to work.
We have a culture of friendship.
The people in general that work here and apply here all want to make a difference in their everyday life for themselves and for the community.
Let's make an impact on our community. Visit maranaaz.gov/careers and apply now.
So public comment period, and they have evaluated our application, said it's complete. What is how much have we actually asked to increase it to? What's the total amount that we've asked to increase it to?
Our total amount is 15,353.
Okay, so roughly double, close to doubling what we currently have in terms of designation of assured water, right? So now that doesn't mean that the application comes with the water, the actual resource itself, right? We're going to have to go out and find the water, the paper water for that, right? Or no?
So what we have in order to get the designation, you do have to show that you have the supplies. So you can change your supplies moving forward, but the renewable supplies that we're currently banking on in our designation is our CAP allocation, our recycled water, and then,
the wastewater treatment plant.
right,
Yep.
exactly, and then replenished groundwater, which is replenished by the CAGRD. So that is our plan for that 15,353 moving forward.
All right. So,
But we can, as you were saying, we can still go out and try to find other renewable water supplies if they make more sense for the town.
right. And you guys are in the process of doing that. And I guess that's what triggered that question for me is all the work that you're doing behind the scenes with Bureau of Reclamation, with some of the Indian tribes, having those conversations about water credits and things of that nature. So what we currently have may change depending on our ability to work with other entities to garner additional water resources. Is that accurate?
I guess it's correct that we have the DAOs. Basically, we have to prove that we have the water resources, and then we're working really hard to look at the renewable water resources to optimize our water portfolio.
Yeah.
But that is not necessarily required by the DAOs, saying you have to have a renewable water resources. As long as you have you can physically accessible water, including the replenished groundwater, that's all count. But for us, we want to do above and beyond by maximize our renewable water portfolio.
Because that's responsible water management, right?
Bingo.
All right. I'm getting the hang of this. All right. So public comment. You mentioned a public comment period. Is that period started yet? Where are we at in that whole process?
Yes, we are in the public comment period, and it runs through January 22nd.
Okay. So we're a couple of weeks away from the public comment period being over. So people can, I mean, who typically is going to, jump in and comment on this? Anybody? I mean, could be any citizen or any entity. Tucson Water could comment on it. Metro Water could comment on it. Other jurisdictions could comment on it. Residents, non-residents could comment on it. Is that, anybody, right?
In the Tucson Active Management area specifically.
Okay. So you have to be in the Tucson AMA. All right. And they can send their comments. Where do they send their comments?
They can send their comments, and I'm sorry I did not bring the exact address. It is to ADWR, and they do have that published in the Daily Territorial and on their website.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this. Since it has been open, you said, are you hearing things out there already in terms of public comment? Is there much that's been coming in?
In terms of Tucson Water and county and other utilities, no. We have not heard any feedback. The main reason is, it's not a closed door process. We have communicated, through different meetings and regional gathering that, the other utilities that they are well aware of this process. And oftentimes they have to go through the same process. So, no, we have not heard much.
So the other people in the AMA, they're very familiar with it. They're aware of what you're doing.
Yes.
And so if they had questions along the way, they've asked and had those questions answered, I assume?
Yes. And then particularly for Tucson Water, we had to work with them to answer some of the questions in the going back to ADWR. So the answer is yes. They're pretty much familiar with what we're doing.
Yeah.
And ask their questions, up to this point, get their questions already kind of answered. So from that regard, we have not heard much of the.
So is there any feedback or comments that you're hearing, either formal or informal, that maybe you think it's important for our listeners to kind of know about, or any misinformation that's important to correct that you're hearing out there?
One of the things truly is going back to the definition of assured water supplies. there's 3 components included in the designation. And one is the existing demand, and the second is committed demand. Committed demand meaning platted, and then the projected demand. So sometimes this is very complicated, can be confusing to general public, right? Oftentimes you hear numbers, right? And then we talk about like a little bit over 3,000 acre feet per year. That is what the water running in the pipe. And then you often hear like our DOS is 75, 80 acre feet. So sometimes those numbers are confusing. We're talking about different things. So you just need to be careful when you hear a set of numbers, making sure that you understand what that number is referring to. You know, whether it's the true current supply, or is committed, or sometimes it's projected, or is the total DOS. So just be aware that, you know, when you look at numbers, making sure you understand the definition of those numbers.
Okay. All right. Anything else that you're hearing out there that you want to validate or correct or anything like that?
I don't know that I have anything specific to add, but I would echo what Jing had said about numbers and sort of like having that understanding, because it is a fairly complicated application. It took over a year and a half just to go through it with like the experts at ADWR. And as Jing mentioned, the other local providers who go through the same kind of process and are familiar with that, you know, might even have an easier time looking at what we're trying to put together. And maybe, I don't know if this is the time for it, but I would put in a plug for our Citizens Water Academy, which is something that we offer for customers of Marana Water to sign up for. And it's just a couple days where you get really in-depth information about the department. Like
when you walk out, you have like a PhD in water resource management.
You definitely get a certificate.
A certificate. Well, it's not a PhD, but a certificate. That is nice. All right. So we want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples and not apples to peanuts, right? I mean, so that's important, it sounds like. And what other? I mean, if somebody says, you know, look, the rainfall in Arizona has been less, and there's climate change, and there's less water in Lake Mead, are those the kinds of things that are relevant to what we're talking about, or does that really is that apples and peanuts?
Yeah, that is that's a great question. Actually, I was thinking about when you ask like what are additional things that the public need to know. So I just want to talk a little bit more about the groundwater modeling, right? So it's required by ADWR. The model is actually modeling the worst case, meaning that, first of all, at the beginning, we take the model from ADWR. This model is a living model. So it's not like you set up a model 10 years ago, you keep using that. This model, the next person who applied for the modification of the DOS, they're going to use our model with our data in. So this ADWR is doing really good job, keep that model up to date.
Okay.
That's the first thing. Secondly is like we talk about the replenishment and we talk about this. Those are in the model. The model does not take credit of the replenishment. So it's worst case simulation.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
So whatever we put in the water, like recharge, replenish, that can only make the situation better.
Okay. Great point for our listeners to be aware of. Now, Jing, Dr. Liu, you've been on the show before. Yep. At least once, maybe twice. Twice?
Once.
Oh, once.
Yes.
Today is twice.
Second time.
Okay, today is second time. And we did a pretty in-depth discussion, you and I and the water director from the city of Tucson, about water resources, water availability, the condition of water in Pima County, specifically the Tucson AMA. And I would highly encourage people, because I think it was one of the the best podcasts we did is in terms of just flat out information for people who are interested in knowing more about the water situation that we have here. And I thought you guys just did a phenomenal job. But one of the things I want to make sure and get out there, do we have enough water to do this? I mean, so we've doubled our request for an assured water supply. Is there enough water to do that?
Yes, we do.
You said that very confidently, Dr. Liu.
We said that very confidently because we have very robust groundwater underneath. Town of Marana is such a blessed community. So, and then going through the groundwater modeling, going through this effort, make me even feel strongly more confident about the availability of the water resources that this town has. So we're pretty confident that we can support the development that for the next foreseeable future.
Very good. I really like that, Jing, that this process, you were confident going into this process that we are in a great position relative to water resources and water availability for this region. But going through this process made you even more confident about that fact.
Yeah, because we've been through the in-depth groundwater modeling, and we also refined the model the second time. Mm-hmm. And then we have so many interconnect projects, quite a few interconnect projects to connect 7 individual systems down to 4 systems. So, all the effort coming together, we make sure that we deliver, first of all, water conservation is our top priority. Asia is definitely leading that effort. I just want to add to the water conservation. We recently received a water conservation grant from WIFA that's going to help us. $250,000 will help us to roll out the rebate program. So that will be a jump start for our water conservation, along with the Water Academy, along with the outreach and the public engagement efforts. So I'm very hopeful that our water conservation gonna make a great progress for the coming year. So having the DAOs, even though it's kind of doubled, almost doubled, but doesn't mean that we're not gonna sit on the amount of water that we're allowed to use in our system. We will focus on the water conservation. We'll focus on maximizing the renewable water resources portfolio. Those are the very important priorities that the Marana Water will continue to work on.
Very good. One last thing I want to make sure that I think this is important. This is one thing that when I first became town manager and had to start learning more about water and water resources, water availability, all of those things. A good portion of the area that Marana Water serves is up here in this North Marana area, right? And a good share of what is going to be built on is farmland, right? So you probably know where I'm going with this. And farmland takes water. You have to have water to grow cotton, to grow corn, to grow whatever, right? And when you retire farmland and put houses on farmland, you actually end up using more water or less water.
You actually, if you compare acre to acre, acre of farmland versus acre of residential housing, so you actually ended up using much less. You will use like 1/3 of the water that you would have used for farmland.
So when we build houses and put houses on farmland, we're actually saving water, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, if it's an acre to an acre comparison, yes.
Yeah, very good. And I don't think a lot of people know that. I think that is important for folks to know. I think that we have covered, maybe one more thing here relative to water quality. So we're saying we got enough water, but do we have enough quality water to serve our residents? Because the concerns about polluted water and PFAS and PFAS and all of those things, is that a concern for us as we move forward now with an increased DAWs?
No, not for the increase of DAOs. DAOs is talking about the quantity of the water supply that we have. We are very confident on that. And then the water quality in terms of PFAS and 1,4-dioxane and maybe potentially some other emerging contaminants. We have found in several of our wells that the emerging contaminant, and I believe the public already know that Town of Marana is a forward-thinking community, and there are two existing PFAS treatment and 1,4-dioxane, PFAS and 1,4-dioxane treatment facilities already existing, was built, completed in 2021. So for the PFAS and 1,4-dioxane, for the people that you may not be familiar with, that they're not regulated contaminants as of today. However, EPA is working on to establish MCL, which is which will become regulated in the near future. Just thinking ahead that the Marana water, we have done a master plan to look at the water qualities in addition to the two existing treatment campus that we are planning on 4 different treatment facilities to address the water quality issues related to PFAS. So we're way ahead of the curve. And even better news that recently we got a loan from WIFA, that $7 million loan that WIFA gave us $4.5 million forgivable principal to support the town to build the next PFAS treatment facility. So we are really well prepared when EPA changed their regulation, and we will be here and will be able to supply high quality water to our community.
Excellent answer, Dr. Liu. I couldn't have said that any better. I think you're absolutely right. The town of Marana is well positioned, has been very forward thinking, put water treatment campuses in place well before it was required, mandated, or anything of that nature. Stepped up and did that, and is continuing to evaluate our groundwater sources, our groundwater wells, to determine where additional plants, and as you indicated, you're thinking another potentially 4 water treatment campuses to make sure that our water quality remains at the very highest levels. So hats off to you and to our council and to your entire water team for being forward thinking to make sure that our community is getting safe water and drinking safe water here in Marana.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so I think that pretty much wraps up the questions that I had. Is there anything that either you, Asia, or you, Jing, think that I forgot to mention or that you wanted to make sure you hit on or talked about here in this episode?
I think we pretty much covered everything that I have on my mind. And Asia, you want to add anything?
I just would add about the Citizens Water Academy again. We're always looking for people to register for that, and we're going to have rebates programs. You mentioned the conservation. That's going to be new things coming out of the department.
Excellent.
And then, to add to that is we have a brand new position, and her name Philbin,
yes,
Karn.
Yeah.
And she's gonna be Asia, and the Karn gonna work on the rebate, the Water Citizen Academy, and the other exciting water conservation programs. Just stay tuned.
Yeah.
And just give us a call or visit our website, and we can go from there.
Well, there you hear it. Heard it, folks. A group of folks in our water department that are forward-thinking, thinking of ways not only to conserve water, but to make it safe for drinking and to make sure that you have enough to drink and use well into the future for the next 100-plus years. So grateful and thankful, Asia and Jing, for having you on the show. Outstanding job of answering some very difficult and complicated questions, making it simple for even people like me to be able to understand it. So I appreciate that. So thank you, listeners, for joining us. We always appreciate it. Make sure you jump in and get an application for the Citizens Water Academy. Sounds like Asia wants some more people in that. So jump on and do that. It's really highly educational. I think you'll find it really valuable. And again, always appreciate you joining us, sending in your questions, and please continue to do that. Until next time.
Submit your questions by visiting maranaaz.gov/realtalk and we'll answer them right here. To receive notifications for new releases, remember to click subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, please follow the town on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date on current news and events.